Now we do.
Now. Okay, perfect. All right. So we'll touch on a bunch of things, and then field questions, I guess, at the end. It gets kind of hard to try and monitor the chat and hand raises and all that because I'm usually not always looking at the gallery of photos. So, but we'll touch on a bunch of topics, and I'll move through and provide plenty of time for questions. So I usually like to lead off with looking at value trends. And these are obviously the values through our office related to the entire tax roll. So the blue bars here, when we go back over 10 years, so you can see the last peak and the trough, and then where we are today with just market value countywide. So you can see where we've come back to a bigger extent than we were in the last peak from a just market standpoint, up to about almost $137 billion of value countywide, which equates to about almost 92 billion in taxable value. The difference between, here's your taxable values, the gold bars. So the difference between these two is a function of your assessment caps and your exemptions. So the taxable value is what is actually used by the taxing authorities against the millage rate to arrive at tax bills. When we throw new construction on the timeline as well, you can see here over the past 3 years, we've hit almost $1 billion of new construction countywide. Bulk of that, sizable portion of that has been within the city of St. Pete, which isn't probably a large surprise, but then a lot of it's been scattered around the rest of the county. Let me get a better pointer going here for you guys. You see this better? So these stats you guys are very familiar with. You get the pro reports, so that's what this data is from actually here. Median sale prices are continuing to move in a positive manner. Residential, we've really seen no impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic to date. The commercial side is a different matter, and we'll get into that. But values are still strong. You guys know better than I do that the supply is extremely tight, probably the tightest I've ever seen it. I mean, when you're on single family and you're down to a month and a half of supply, that's incredibly tight. So on new construction, just to give you some perspective of what that's principally made of, about 58% of it is residential. So it's new construction and renovation and single family condos and townhomes and manufactured. If you drive around the county enough, you're going to see a lot of rental multifamily going up, you know, a lot of 3 and 4 story wrap type product going up. So that's about 25% of the new construction activity. And then the balance is made up of 16% has been a lot of self-storage, some build-to-suit freestanding retail, and a little bit of hospitality actually got in there, although I don't think we're going to see any new hospitality come out of the ground for quite some time because of what's going on with COVID-19. So taxable values for 2020, the general fund is the best measure for a countywide estimate. So taxable value growth for 2020 over 2019 was 7.3%. Now, remember, keep in mind, our values are all, the effective date is always January 1. So as of January 1, 2020, which happened to be 2 months before the first 2 cases of COVID-19 were reported within the state of Florida. So any of our value estimates as of 1/1/2020 do not reflect any COVID impacts. Those will be picked up in our 2021 valuation. There's ongoing dialogue right now. In fact, before this Zoom call, I was on a WebEx presentation. I was the lead presenter with a group of property appraisers and other business owners from around the state. We were conducting a roundtable. It was the second one we've done to talk about COVID impacts and ideas that we might be able to bring forward to the state legislature when they do their organizational session at the end of the year, and before they could maybe make some budget tweaks, and they might be looking at some ways to provide some relief via property and tangible tax relief to impacted property owners. But it's still, there's a lot of dialogue going on in that regard. I had conversations with both the governor's office and the head of the Florida Department of Revenue yesterday. So we're trying to build a dashboard tool that we can get all the sales and bed tax information in to use to help pinpoint those most impacted, and use that as a statewide tool that you can drill down to your jurisdiction, or you can look by region, or you can open it up statewide and look at, we're going to marry the business use codes to property use codes and be able to drill down. And we thought it was really important to get more of that transparency. So we're having those conversations at the state level, because we don't normally get that data on a frequent enough basis to use it in a meaningful manner. But we think we're going to be able, they're sounded like they're going to work with us on it this year. Here's your fire tax districts, range roughly, their taxable value growth ranged anywhere from about 4 to 8%. Your North County cities, generally in the 6 to 8.5% range. Your southern cities, roughly 5 to as high as 11%. Kansas City actually had the largest taxable value growth for 2020. And then your barrier islands, and we pulled Clearwater into here, even though we know it's a lot more than just a barrier island. So here you can see these are about 5 to 9% as well. And Bel Air Shore is your smallest taxing authority. It's less than 70 single family homes. So as we just talked about, this information is on our website. There is a link when you go to our homepage that talks about your property value and COVID-19. So we wanted to make sure this information was out. If you looked at your trim notice closely, you'll have noticed there was an informational insert supplement piece that we included, and it had this on it as well. And then it directed people to our website. If they want more information, there's an FAQ on our website that walks through a couple of scenarios, and highly encourages our commercial property owners to submit their 2019 and their 2020 income and expenses to us, so we can better get a grip on who's impacted within our county. Another thing we're doing because of the pandemic, we've extended the homestead exemption with an extenuating circumstance form. If they submit that, they can still apply up until September 18th for 2020. So if you had any new buyers that bought in 19 and forgot to file for homestead, normally that deadline is March 1 of the year after your purchase, but we've extended that all the way to September 18th. So if you've got anybody out there that you sold property to in 19, you might want to just check and make sure that they've got their homestead, and if not, give them a friendly reminder, and they can reach out to us. They can still do it online, so they can do the normal homestead app online. They don't even have to come in, and they just need to also sign and send in that extenuating circumstance form that will trigger us to know that it's a 2020 as opposed to a 2021 application. Because if we only get the homestead app without the extenuating circumstance, we're going to think, oh, well, they're applying for 2021, just applying early. So countywide, our homesteaders comprise about 60% of our residential property owners. So it's roughly 60-40 between homestead and non-homestead. That is important because of the way recapture works. And this slide is really more of a benefit to those that work within taxing authorities, to let them understand how the Save Our Homes cap restrains assessed value growth, and it also shows how it protects taxing authorities a little bit from really drastic changes in taxation dollars going towards them. So it helps both the property owner and the taxing authorities at different times in the cycle. It kind of softens the movement. So the way it works is, you have your just market value, and when you're a new buyer, everything resets. Just and assessed are one and the same. And then over time, your just market value can grow. In a rising market, it can grow at a rate more rapid than the 3% or CPI, whichever is less. That's what this is depicting here. So here you've got rapid value growth in the market, but your assessed value is constrained, creates that gap. That gap is your assessment differential, also known as your Save Our Homes benefit. That's what you can port to your next property. But then when the market turns, so if we do have if a property type has an impact from COVID, this number could start to come down. This can actually continue to rise until those two numbers meet. So that confused a lot of people in the last market cycle when we had the crash. Their values took a tumble on the market side, but yet their assessed value still rose, and they ultimately still got a slightly higher tax bill, if the taxing authority held or raised their millage rate. So important to know just how those two numbers work together. So once they meet, the assessed value can never exceed just market. So then they ride together if it's in a downward fashion. But then once the market starts to outpace assessed value, again, they can diverge, and you can start to build that Save Our Homes benefit once again. So I think most of you guys probably have a pretty good grip on portability. We just talked about it's that difference between just and assessed value. The way it works right now, you have two tax years from the last January 1 that you qualified for homestead to carry that to your next homesteaded property. Well, that sounds good in theory, and voters approved it back in 2008, and we know that released some of that pent-up demand because the Save Our Homes cap kicked in back in the mid-90s, and that helped a lot of our homeowners. But then they felt that they were basically trapped in their home because if they moved, they lost that benefit, and they got a tax reset on their next house. And so a lot of them were basically felt a little bit captive in their home, and that created that pent-up demand within the real estate market, and sales slowed down. So after 2008, that took the lid off of that. However, we were dealing with the Great Recession at that time, so it wasn't as noticeable. We didn't have the movement. But then as the market started to improve, we started to see people moving around and utilizing their portability. However, most people's perception of that 2-year window was 2 years from sale. So, but that is not how it works. And I've been told that even some of the real estate schools had it in their literature that way, that it was 2 years from sale. But that is not correct. So if you sell at the beginning of January, yes, you basically get your full 2 years. But if you sell at the end of December, you could literally have as short as 1 year and a day. Because again, it goes by the last January 1 that you qualified for. So we wanted to fix that, and we went ahead and introduced legislation, and it's taken 3 years to get this done. And I apologize, we got hopefully you're not getting too much interference here they're having too much fun in the next room over right now. But so we wanted to introduce legislation to add an additional year so that the homeowner could always have a minimum of 2 years, no matter what time of year you sold, because we felt like that fell better in line with what voter perception was when they voted for it back in 2008. So you'll see references to it calling it 3-year port, but it really is a window. So it's a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3. Right now, that window is as short as 1 and up to a maximum of 2, but very few actually get that 2-year. New construction, that's a problem, to move out of 1, build a home, and get in there and meet that window, especially if you sold your principal residence near the end of the year. That's a problem. Also, those dealing with pandemic, the financial ramifications of the pandemic, or other financial issues that may fall upon them, whether it's a divorce or what have you, that keep you from getting into that next homestead as timely as you might like to. And therefore, they're losing this benefit. And while it's not a big hit to the taxing authorities or on a statewide basis, it's a big hit if you're the one that loses it. So that individual suffers greatly. So what we found just today is we actually, the editorial board of the Sun Sentinel released an article endorsing Amendment 5, which will be on your ballot in November to approve this. It will require a 60% vote, and the St. Pete Ed board already basically supported it back before it even passed through the legislature. So just to review portability, the limitations on it. So as long as you can move that benefit. If your just value, if it's a lateral move from one just value to the other or greater, you can carry that full port amount. If you go down, then it gets prorated down. So if you moved from a property that we valued for $500,000 and you're moving down to one that we're going to value for $250,000, and you had a $100,000 port, it's basically you're going to get 50% of that. It's going to get cut in half because you've reduced your value by half. You're going to cut that port amount in half. And the maximum you can carry forward on a lateral or an upward move is a maximum of $500,000 of value. And your tax estimator will handle that. So it handles the port quite nicely. So here's your current time frame. It shows you your 2-year window. You can see here the problem is, you sell here, you get your full 2 years, but you sell here at the end of this first year and you've got pretty short runway, unfortunately. So here's the information on the constitutional amendment, changing the time frame to 2 to 3 years. That was sponsored by Senator Brandis in St. Pete, and then Representative Roth from over in Palm Beach worked on that. It was a very bipartisan effort. We had co-sponsors from the other side of the aisle, and I'm happy to say it passed unanimously in both the House and the State Senate. So there's your 3rd year. And another property tax related amendment that will be on the ballot this year is Amendment 6. And it's really designed to close a loophole for our veterans and actually the surviving spouses of our deceased veterans. So combat veteran disabled vets that were 65 plus, their surviving spouses were not receiving that benefit being carried forward. So this is just to kind of close a loophole because the other veteran benefits do carry a surviving spouse provision, and this one somehow got left out. And we've been working for the last couple of years with the Property Appraisers Association of Florida and the Florida Association of Property Appraisers. We have 2 different ones, and we've been working to try and get that through, and that made it to the ballot this year as well. So just to make you aware. You may have run into this. This was a new law last year that kicked in as of July 1st of 2019, and it expanded the definition of protected home address. So if you're in our data and all of a sudden you can't find a parcel, an address doesn't exist, parcel number doesn't exist, you can't find the owner, they likely have a protected address. They may be a judge, they may been a victim of some sort of episode and have applied. There's a very wide range of people that qualify for the exemption. So that you may run across that. You used to see asterisks just over certain fields, but now the record is completely out of our database from public view. We're trying to change that with the new website to where we can just redact these key fields, the physical and the mailing address, the parcel ID, the neighborhood name and lot number, and the legal, and the GIS coordinates. But we want to still have the data there behind the scenes so that you have it for sales purposes. If you're pulling comps, those types of things, you'll know what city it's in, but you won't know what subdivision it's in but the data will still be there. So if you're running stats based on our information, it doesn't get left out. So we'll have the the physical information and related to that property. So, land areas, building areas, the values, those types of things will still be there, but we will protect these other things per the statute. So, but if you've run into this, the way to deal with this now is you can go on our website. There's a form you can take to the property owner. They can get that notarized, get it to our office. You can come in anyway, whether you email it in, and we can deliver the complete unredacted information as long as we have that notarized release form from the property owner. So that's the best way to handle it, is just to be upfront with it, get that into us, and it stipulates on there who the information is to be released to, and we'll make sure to get that to them. Because obviously it's really important if you're trying to list somebody's property and you need that information. So that just addresses most of the parties that are impacted by this, that are doing business within the real estate world and using our data every day. So the website. So I would imagine you guys touch that quite a bit, and it's an important piece of your business. And we've really focused on trying to tighten that tool up since I came in, but it is built on an old frames-based architecture, so it does limit what we can do in the future. So we started development of a new site almost 2 years ago. It's been a long process working with the vendor, and because we really want to roll out the best site in the state, if not the country, when it comes out. We know how important a tool it is. 70% of our users are returning users, so that tells me that the bulk of those are people in the real estate industry. If you're returning that much, it's you all, it's title companies, it's attorneys, it's people in the construction industry. So every day I learn about other people in the business world that use our site in different ways. So we're excited to roll out a new site for you guys. And here's kind of a peek of what the homepage is gonna look like. In fact, I'll show you it live here in a second. But it will be mobile friendly. It's a responsive page, so whatever type of device you're on, it will respond accordingly. It's going to have advanced GIS mapping and data layers within it. The advanced search will be much more intuitive than the one that's in there now when you want to download a lot of information and go through it. And then the GIS mapping will actually have really clever filtering on it by different property types, and you can really drill down and use the map to essentially drive your search. So I'll show you, let's see here. Can you see that there? Is that showing? Okay. So this tool here, this My Location button, we wanted to make the search front and center, so you don't have to go into any other menus. So you've got radio buttons right here to pick what you want to search on. You'll also be able to search tangible personal property accounts for the first time for our businesses. But the My Location, if you're on a mobile device with location services enabled, it's going to pull the parcels up that you're standing within about 45 feet of. So if you were literally sitting in the middle of somebody's living room at their house and doing a listing presentation, you could hit that button and you can basically jump right into their parcel record. So got speed buttons down here for a bunch of helpful things. There's the tax estimator right there. This is going to look different. This is a carousel, but these aren't the right photos that are going to be in here. But we've got live property stats down here by parcel and by unit counts that will be rolling through. The property detail page. Now the aerial is up top to the right instead of being all the way at the bottom, so you can make sure you're actually in the right location when you land. And you'll have a toolbar that'll pop out when you first visit. You know, the current site has links kind of buried all through it, and a lot of people don't even know they're there. So we've taken all that relevant information and boiled it all down into these little speed quick pick tools that'll be off to the side. So you're gonna have different ways to print. You're gonna be able to print this data page, be able to email it, be able to contact us, and you'll be able to do a custom report. And you'll be able to pick, if you just want that detail page, you can get it, but you can get the property record card, the trim notice, the aerial and parcel map. You can get the copy of the most recent deed, the FEMA letter that we have on there related to the 50% rule, and then you can also check homestead status. All that can be compiled into one report for a property owner or for your use. So also on here that, and let me scroll down first. So you can leave this out or you can kick it back. But we kept the layout the same because we knew people were pretty much new on the parcel detail page where things were. So the layout is the same. It's just, it's tightened up, it's modified. Links still are there when you're leaving and jumping to another site. So, to go to the tax collector site to view the tax bill, there's your link right there. The sale history has been expanded. Now we also include the grantor and grantee. When you have really old sales, they're not going to show because that data didn't used to get processed through the clerk's office. Those were not indexed fields. So when you go back into the 80s and older, you generally won't see the title chain there. You'll have to actually look at the individual deeds, but all your deed links are right over here. Your sketch is here. Your sketch can be blown up. You can scale it, and you can print it out separately if you want. And then your permit data, all that is generally the same. All our contact information is down here. But here you can jump to your trim notice. You can apply for exemptions on this parcel. You can change the mailing address, request a review of the parcel. So if you're going to list a property and you notice that, wait a minute, Mike's got the wrong square footage on this property. There's a whole addition that never got picked up. Notify us. Click that link. Let us know. We'll send an appraiser out, and we'll pick up that additional square footage and make sure we get it on the parcel record card. You can do a radius search from that parcel if you need to produce mailing labels within a certain region. So that a lot of jurisdictions use that when they're providing notice for say a variance around a property. They have to notify people within so many feet. Those types of things. And here's one I think you'll really like. So the comparable sales tool right here. So if I'm on this parcel and I click that, it ends up popping a new page open like so. So in this case, it pulled that right in. It automatically has defaults in here. So it knows, okay, it's a single family home. It's a non-waterfront parcel. Yes, it has a pool. And I'm just looking for qualified sales. These parameters are already built in. It defaults the last 6 months, plus or minus 10% of the square footage, and plus or minus 10 years on year built. And then it gives you a result set down here, and it defaults on a half-mile radius. So you can tweak any of these parameters and start to open it up or narrow it. In this case, there's only one sale return that meets those criteria. So in looking at this, well, maybe it's because, it has a pool. So what if I open the pool one open, or open that up to include those with pools and without? I search again, and presto, now I've got 5 sales. So you can easily make an adjustment for a pool related to that, and you're still within those tighter parameters. Or you can obviously add some square footage at the high or low end of the range. There's all types of things you can do. But I wanted to have something that you could literally effectively almost push one button and you might get a pretty tight result set. And then here, obviously you could pick all those comps, or you could pick individuals. So you can turn those into a printed report, or you can export those to Excel. So that's a few of the features there on the website. It's still going to have a lot more. I'm not even going to get into all the GIS tools. That gets way into the weeds, but hopefully the next time I'm able to present to you, we'll actually be able to drive the entire thing. So let me get back on to this guy. Quick update on flood insurance. So they've still got to reauthorize. Actually, I think I saw something the other day that I don't know if they've actually authorized it yet, but we know it's going to get extended because it would expire at the end of this month, and Congress isn't going to let that happen. So it'll get extended. I don't know for how long. It may just be to the end of the year. It may be into the early part of next year, but it's essentially they continue to kick the can down the road on that one. But as of next year, and this is changing, risk rating 2.0 will start to roll out. That was postponed 1 year from these original dates. It was supposed to kick in April of 2020. The premiums were going to be released, and then in October, you were going to start to see the impacts of premiums. But they delayed that a year. So now in 2021, in those same months, those actions are going to start to occur. Now they're basically revamping the entire program. It's not just working from the old flood zone maps in whatever zone you're in. Now they're looking at risk at the parcel level. So they're looking at flood type, proximity to the water, the surge models. They're bringing in replacement costs for the first time in their as a variable, and obviously they're still looking at where your lowest floor elevation is. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're eager to see what the math looks like. That's the big wild card right now. They haven't revealed how they're going to construct these premiums. So, whereas before, if you were a pre-firm home in an A zone and you and your neighbor are both carrying $250,000 to max coverage, you were both paying the same rate. However, under this new model, everybody could effectively be paying something different because of all those rating variables. So we really have to see how it's going to shake out. The good news with the new maps, but they have not been formally adopted yet, probably still won't happen until probably early to mid-summer is my guess from what I'm hearing and talking with the floodplain managers. But base flood elevations along the west side of Pinellas actually are going down on average 1 to 3 feet, which should be good for property owners. But up in the bay, it's going the other direction, and most of this area through St. Pete, it's 1 to 2 feet of rising base flood elevation. And then when you get up here towards Safety Harbor, Oldsmar, that impact gets greater, because the theory on their models is the water would push up into the bay, gets held up in the bay at the bay head, and stacks and doesn't have anywhere to go. So your water can get deepest up at the top of the bay. So green here obviously depicts good, red is not good, and yellow is neutral. And if you want to see individual change at the parcel level, you can do that right now on our current website. In using this link right here, you can compare current versus preliminary FEMA maps. If you click that, it will take you to a page that looks like so. This is a swipe map, so you can grab this bar, move it back and forth, and compare the prelim to the current map. And there you can also, if you click on the parcel, you'll get a pop-up like this. It'll show if there's any zone change. For example, this one you can see still an AE zone, no change in zone. However, the base flood elevation is going down 3 feet from 12 to 9. The reason we don't light that up right away when you land on it, we actually make the dot comes in at the street level in front of the parcel, because some parcels are in 2 zones. They've got a base flood elevation that can change. So that way you can click on either side. And it's really driven by where the structure of your home sits. So you want to look at that. So you want to look at the footprint of the house is what's potentially impacted. But I can see one right here where you can see a contour line is going right through the edge of the house. So it's going to, whatever the worst case scenario is, and if it gets picked up by that little corner there, that's what they're going to be subject to. So see, they'd be subject there under the new map to an AE 10 as opposed to an AE 9 because they get picked up. That little corner right there gets picked up. Now, these aren't survey quality maps, so that's a whole nother issue. You know, best to have somebody go out and actually conduct that elevation certificate survey. Another thing to point out, we will be bringing elevation certificates on that are archived actually onto our website at the parcel level. We're working with a vendor on that right now and our county floodplain administrator. So we are aggregating all of that data so that we have that, because we may need to use it as part of our valuation modeling going forward. We had a master plan going where we really thought we could estimate those value impacts in a real meaningful way, and that was right before FEMA rolled out risk rating 2.0, which, you know, they moved the cheese on us and changed all the methodology. So now we have to take a kind of a wait and see once they roll that out. But we're in the process of collecting all the data and trying to get our data set as tight as possible so that we're ready to account for that when that day comes. So if you, in addition, if you want more information on flood impacts and flooding within Pinellas County, you can go to this site, which is the county's flood page, and there you can get that quick view is the same as our swipe map. The detailed view will actually give you, you can look at the existing map individually, you can look at the prelim map individually, and a bunch of other resource tools. They also have a, let me see if I can show you here. It looks like so. So you can pick any of these tabs up here. Evacuation zones are on there. They have storm surge on here, and they have an existing elevation certificate search tool on here too. But this will become more comprehensive as we get that data from the vendor, and you'll end up seeing those countywide. So that's all I had for you guys today. Oh, the other thing I wanted to make sure you all were aware of, you may not be down in the south part of the county as much, but we did, our office that was just south of Tyrone Square Mall off 66th Street, that's been down there for decades, that office is now closed. So nobody's operating out of there except the clerk, and they're just doing back office functions. So there's no public facing operation by us, the clerk, or the tax collector there. All those services have been moved over to 2500 34th Street North. If on that information supplement that went out with the trim notice, that had our new location, announced the opening of our new facility. We've got a great facility over there. The tax collector is 3/4 of that new 2-story building, but we have 1/4 of the space up on the 2nd floor. It's really nice, and it's, when you go in it, you feel like it was designed for a post-COVID world. So I think we did a really good job of laying that out, and the customers that have come in to date have really appreciated it and felt very safe in the space. So encourage you to come by and check out that facility when you get a chance. And again, 2500 34th Street North. So very essentially smack dab in the middle of the center of the south portion of the county. So very accessible to all of our residents down there. And want to encourage you all to use our office as a resource, you know, for you and your clients. Reach out. Probably many of you have, you know, call our staff. We're very happy to answer anything we can. Florida tax law is very complicated. It's probably the most complicated in the nation because of the exemptions that we have. And then when you throw in the Save Our Homes cap and how I was showing you today, how recapture works and all of those types of things, a lot of people don't, you know, they don't want to wrap their head around that, and I don't blame them, you know, but we're in this business to try and help people understand this. And I like to, you know, educate you all on it, because then it puts you guys a notch above your competition when you're sitting down and explaining this stuff with your clients, and you can help them make more educated decisions about the timing of their buy-sell situations too, because that can be important with that portability calculation. So hopefully you guys will be on board with me supporting Amendment 5 and 6, and happy to answer any questions for you guys.
guys. So, I mean, worth the price of admission today. Just amazing. We are over our time, but we will ask Mike if he can. Do you have a few minutes to answer some questions in the chat?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. So if you can stay on, let's stay on and let's get some questions answered. Taylor, do you want to pose questions?
Sure. So it looks like Tammy asked, how does portability work on a divorce?
Okay. Statutorily, before the divorce is finalized, there's supposed to be a form completed. That's called I believe it's a 501TS form that basically says who's going to keep the homestead on the property and if it's going to be divided in what percentages. So if it's at 50-50, is it 75-25? The statute says if that's not done, then it's really could just be split and we could reset the cap on half of the property. We don't take that approach because we understand when people go through that scenario, most of them don't know that form exists to begin with, so we do allow them to do it after the fact. They both have to sign off on that. We've been educating, we've actually been doing some CE for the bar association to educate the attorneys, because a lot of them didn't realize that can actually be an asset. It can be quite a sizable one, but you do have a lot of scenarios where, okay, say one spouse is remaining in the home and they have the homestead exemption and save our homes cap there, that's really benefiting that property. And the spouse that is no longer in that residence, well, they might not, for example, say they're not going to buy within the next couple of years, so they're not going to get that benefit anyway. But they may still be making a financial contribution back towards supporting that other dwelling. They really don't want to have to pay even more because the homestead gets cut in half. So we try to look through those scenarios and help them out and say, unless that other spouse actually comes in and says, hey, I want my 50%, then we explain to them, we'll get with your attorneys, let's do that form and submit it to us with a 50-50 breakdown, and we'll move on from there. So that's the way we try to handle it, rather than to just strip it off and reset half of that, because it ends up doing financial harm that's tough to undo.
Oh, hey, yeah. So, Mike, do you know that if Hillsborough County also has extended the 2019 homestead exemption filing date?
I believe they have.
All right. So reach out to Hillsborough County, whoever asked that question.
Yes.
Joe, thank you.
The website,
yeah, when is the website going to be available? Because that is impressive, and I know you've been working on it a long time, and we appreciate it so much.
If it were completely up to me, it would be available right now. But unfortunately, there are other forces at work. So I'm pushing hard. We're having multiple meetings every week to try and get it across the goal line. So we are dangerously close to having it into internal beta and driving it. We're shaking out some last bugs before we get it to our bigger group in-house. Then I'm anticipating about 30 days of internal beta. Then we're going to roll out to external beta. So if some of you may already be on our list of external beta users, if you're not and you would like to, I encourage you, shoot me an email and I will make sure to get you on the list. So then you would be in the external beta group and you'll be able to test and give us your feedback and input. And
great.
Then,
yeah,
that's probably the whole site probably won't roll out till right around the beginning of the year to the public.
All right, Dan Mack, get on that beta testing. So the 501TS form, where does somebody find that?
It's on our website.
It is. Okay, good. Anybody else have any other questions? Somebody had asked about a copy of the presentation. We have recorded Mike's segment of the team meeting today, so you can go back and revisit that if you have a repeat question. I think Pam had a repeat question. We'll let you go back and revisit. So yeah, we've been recording it. Does anybody else have any other questions before we let Mike go? Yeah, thanks. Right. So yeah, I've got people in the room. Just thanks. It was a great meeting, and he has agreed to come back. A couple of times. He's got other stuff and content that he can talk about, and we've now made good contact with the office. And Taylor's going to make sure to have them back because this is the stuff that really does set us apart as real estate agents, and we totally appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today. So I think that wraps it up for the day. John, I see that you're still there too. So thank you for organizing. And I appreciate all of you. Make it a great day. If you need anything, get with us at the office.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me.
All right. Thanks again.
And thank you.
Have a great day.
Mhm.
Bye-bye. Thank you.